My name is Mark Jackson. I'm the Director of Fuels Management for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. I'm presenting on the Reserved Treaty Rights Lands Program, which the focus is facilitating tribal ancestral land management amongst non-trust landowners and managers. Tribal relationships with federal agencies on land management has often been strained, as the tribes may not have had funding to go on to the federal agencies or other landowners and ask to participate in setting tribal priorities for those lands that are there within their ancestral footprint. The RTRL focus is on ancestral and traditional lands managed by others, such as the state and the federal and the private sectors. After decades of economic and social pressures, tribes have remained steadfast in retention of our food base, our medicinal plants and traditional plants, our sacred sites, and water that are often on our ancestral footprint, but not within our trust boundaries or our reservation boundaries, where we can actually implement our tribal priorities for those lands. Retention of ancestral rights remains a strong, commonly recognized connection amongst tribes and Native organizations. Across our country, communities and ecosystems face a serious threat from fire, insects, disease, and climate change. Through the Department of Interior and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Reserve Treaty Rights Program was initiated in 2015. The RTRL program enables tribes to participate in collaborative projects with non-trust, non-tribal landowners. The emphasis of RTRL is to enhance the health and resiliency of priority tribal natural resources at high risk to fire. The Reserve Treaty Rights Land Program has intended consequences. We'd like to increase tribal members' interest in managing their ancestral footprints for their traditional utilizations, to enhance tribal members' opportunities to participate in managing for traditional priorities and on their ancestral footprint. We intend to advance tribal ecological knowledge to our collaborative partners. We want to afford the tribes the opportunity of inclusion in developing resource management priorities for their ancestral footprint. We want to develop a strong tribal workforce and skill set. And we want to develop economic opportunities as the tribes exercise their ancestral and traditional rights on their traditional lands. The RTRL funding process. Projects begin at the local level, so it would be the tribe and the local BIA agency. They would work with their surrounding landowners and land managers. It could be a state, could be a private sector, could be the Forest Service. Once those proposals are developed, they would submit those to their local BIA region, who would review and submit them to the national office in Boise for the final review and determination of funding. The metrics of success for RTRL are the number of tribal priorities that are met and the number of collaborator priorities that are met. The RTRL program is interested in the number of acres accomplished by these programs, but more importantly, we want to succeed in meeting tribal priorities in conjunction with the collaborator priorities, to where both groups are able to move forward in managing ancestral lands for the traditional uses of the tribes. Accomplishments. We've had a RTRL program that has won a Pulaski Award. That was the first time and that particular award was ever won by a tribal or BIA unit, and I'm extremely proud of that particular group. They did an excellent job, and you can see some of the items that they had to meet to be able to win that award. And we often encourage, or we always encourage the tribes and the local bureaus to interact with their collaborators and utilize their collaborator strengths that we may not necessarily have within the bureau or that local unit or within the bureau regionally or nationally. In this particular case with the YouTube, the Forest Service had a high level of expertise in developing these types of public service products, and they went ahead and developed one for this particular project, which I would encourage people to view. And thank you for your time.
My name is Brian Donahue with the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs Fire Management. So today we're going to be talking about RTRL projects, the pros and cons of what we have seen here at Warm Springs with these RTRL projects. And we're going to tag team this discussion with myself and the RTRL lead, Anton Moody. And so I'm going to let him talk about what he has, and if I need add anything else on there, I will do that this time.
For the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs RTRL, we have several projects for completed, ongoing, and future potential projects. For the completed, we have Limitai Meadow Project, which is along the western border of the reservation on the west slope of the Cascades. It's a collaboration between the U.S. Forest Service. For ongoing projects, we have Robinson Creek Restoration Project, and that's a collaboration between the Warm Springs Bureau of Natural Resources and the Bonneville Power Administration, BPA. So far, we have several phases completed of that. One phase was completed in 2018 for 209 acres. A second phase was completed this spring of 2021 for 250 acres. Later in 2021, we will be going ahead with a phase 3 of juniper removal for 250 acres, roughly. Based on animal surveys, we'll be changing tactics for land management and adapting to different specs to increase animal productivity. For future potential projects, we have Sunflower Flat HFR, which will provide protection for feline within the reservation. Roughly 7,000 acres are treatable. The RTRL Robinson Creek Juniper Removal Project is roughly 45 miles away from the Confederate Tribes of Warm Springs reservation boundary as the crow flies. Due to the road system, it is roughly an hour and a half drive away from the Warm Springs agency. This creates a hindrance on most contractors to get to the area, let alone the steep terrain. From this video, you can see the steepness of the terrain and the difficulties some contractors will have due to the lack of road access. The nearest parking point from this unit is all the way down at that valley bottom. From here is the next units, and just as well, a lack of road systems to where people have to travel. The Sunflower Flats project will be taking place in the north central part of the Warm Springs Reservation. It is located roughly 20 miles away from the Warm Springs Agency and consists of flat and steep terrain. This location is beneficial to tribal members for food gathering and wildlife harvesting. Here's a glimpse of the Sunflower Flats project area. It encompasses everything from these ridges to close by to the video point. The hazardous field treatment for this land will consist of two different methods. One method will be using mastication on the lower flatlands that can be more efficiently used by heavy equipment. The second method will be hand thinning on the higher slopes that are more easily accessible by hand crews and contractors that do not have a limitation of slope. This land has been beneficial to the community members of the Warm Springs Reservation since back in the treaty days, as far as traditional uses and recreational uses, from gathering traditional foods to harvesting animals and gathering wood to keep their houses warm. By removing some hazardous fuels, we hope to return this area to a more natural fire regime, so it's more fire resilient and less impactful during fire season to community members and firefighters alike.
So some of the issues we had was in the beginning, the learning process of the project proposal, how the national office wanted these proposals. We was lucky enough to get our hands on a BLM project that went through the national office, and then we took that and ran with it and was able to get the process down. So the good thing is sharing that information with other tribes and other agencies helped us out a lot. And then the other issue would be prior approval from other agencies, the BLM, Forest Service, and Bonneville Power Administration. So some of the projects we had, like the Forest Service project we had, trying to work with that agency over there and all the issues they had, we were able to finally get the approval of it and get the project completed in there in 2020, I believe was the last time that we worked on that. Some issues we had with the travel way of this is with the purchasing department of contract and budgeting. There's a lot of loopholes to jump through on that side. Trying to get all the disciplines on the same page for the project work. A lot of meetings to setting up how to do it all together, and then the emphasis of fire management, trying to alleviate and get fire behavior potential down is what our number one objective was. Finding consistent contractors to work on the projects is another issue we had. With the Robinson Creek project, it's about an hour's drive from Warm Springs out to there, and so not a lot of contractors are willing to go out there and stay out there and do that work, is one of the other issues we have. And then turnover of land managers, and when people quit, move on to different jobs, and then somebody new comes in and they have different ideas than what the first original person agreed on, that's another issue for us too. Stop. So issues with other agencies, we had Bonneville Power Administration. We had to work on a migrating bird time in there, so that cuts our project times down. So you have migrating bird season, we cannot do project work on, and then you have fire season that shuts everything down, so you only have a minimal amount of months that you can do this work in. The other part is Bonneville Bauer required an arc survey on that piece of ground to be able to do road work maintenance on there, and so that's another loophole we had to jump through, is to make sure that we were doing what they wanted to do, because it was their money that purchased this land for the Caribbean tribes in Warm Springs. With the Forest Service, trying to get our purchasing department in line with their purchasing department and able to pay their contractors that did the work up there, because we had no tribal contractors that put in for that work up there. So making sure the money lined up and we're able to get it to the Forest Service to pay the contractors that they used in this project. And fire jurisdictions is another issue we had with the Robson Creek area. So we had which IFPL will follow, because it fell right between two districts. So that was a lot of time on the phone and meetings on which one we're going to use. Which land agency will respond to fires if a contractor started a fire out there. And then also who developed the burn plans and treatment of acres within there. And it came down to it where the BLM is the one who's developing the burn plan. So a lot of talk with Warm Springs Fire Management and the BIA and the BLM on if they're able to accept that they're going to be doing the burn plan, and so far it has worked out in our favor for that. Okay, so all in all, we've had a lot of issues starting this. It seems like things are going now the way we want it to, and hopefully with these new projects proposals that we're getting ready to put in for, we've taken care of a lot of these issues. We're always out there to help somebody with a plan or help somebody submit a project. And so I will give you my contact information. You can call me and we could just ship you the plan that we've submitted and got approved. And hopefully that'll help you guys out working through these issues if you're trying to start a new RTRL program. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Darrell Clairmont, and I'm the Prescribed Fire and Fuels Manager for the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes at Division of Fire. I've been asked today to do a short presentation on cross-boundary collaboration using reserve treaty right lands, or RTRL, as a tool. RTRL began in 2015, and in May of 2015, the initial policy memorandum came out that provided purpose, direction, and some business rules for the program. Purpose is to provide funding to enable American Indian tribes and Alaska Natives to participate in collaborative projects with other landowners, be it federal, state, private, or others, to treat, restore, and enhance the health and resiliency of tribal priority landscapes within and adjacent to ancestral and reserve treaty right lands. Some of the business rules that are tied to the program are the tribes must have a collaborator or a cooperator. It can be one or as many as the project needs. There's some reporting requirements tied to projects. And the program is designed to treat non-tribal lands that are important to the tribes. There can be some tribal land treated in a project, but the majority of the land is to be treated off reservation or non-tribal. In 2015, Confederated Salish Kootenai Tribes developed their first project. It was a collaboration between the U.S. Forest Service and the Fish Wildlife Service. The Plains District was the Forest Service partner, and the National Bison Range was the Fish Wildlife Service partner. Both of these partners have worked with the tribe in the past, and it seemed like a good project to do with these partners, considering the past history that they had. Since 2015, the tribe has developed 4 other RTRL projects and have been funded for all 4. First one, in 2017, is the Marshall Woods project. That was a collaboration between the tribe and the Missoula District Forest Service. That one has been completed. The next one that was developed was the Perma Knolls collaboration, and that was back with partnering with the Plains District Forest Service. We've done one with BLM and TNC in 2018. And then the last one that was developed was back on the National Bison Range with Fish Wildlife Service. The initial project has been completed. The Marshall Woods one has been completed. And then the final 3 are in their final stages. Should either be completed this year or possibly next spring. Here's a map showing project locations. The McGinnis cabin is the initial project, RTRL project that was tied in with the National Bison Range. The next one is the Marshall Woods, located down just north of Missoula. Perma Knolls one is on the southwest boundary of Bison or the reservation. And then down in this area is the BLM, TNC, and Tribal RTRL project. And then the final one is back on the National Bison Range. So what can RTRL do to help collaborate cross-boundary work? Big thing is it's a funding source for projects to do treatments, activities, and planning, both pre-planning to get a project started, or any type of planning that needs to occur during a project. So it's a funding source that can be used to get work done or planning done. Some of the work we've done on our RTRL projects is we've done aerial ignition. The top right picture here is a burn that we've done on the Perma Knolls project. This ridge right along here is the reservation boundary. And on this project, we're burning with the Forest Service along that boundary, both on and off the reservation. We've done hand ignition on some of our projects. We've done mechanical thin, mechanical pile. We've done hand thin, hand pile. We've done pile burning. And then we've done other treatments that are not your typical types of treatments, such as road decommissioning, ditch repair, fence construction, and a lot of those type of activities or treatments have been tied to areas that have been identified as important to the tribe for one reason or another, and trying to restrict the type of access that the public has to these areas. That middle picture that you're looking at here, there was a lot of vehicle traffic that was going on in these areas, and both the cooperator and the tribe wanted to restrict that, and that's where we did a lot of fence work and then some road decommissioning. We've also planted native plants. The top right picture here, we've gotten seed sources from some areas in our RTRL projects. Our forest development greenhouse has grown the seedlings and the plugs, and we've done planting on our RTRL projects. So there's a wide variety of work that you can do under RTRL. RTRL also provides the tribes a voice on management or actions or decisions on non-tribal lands. It allows the tribe an opportunity to express their connection, their interests, their past history, and even their current use on areas that are non-tribal lands. Picture here is an area in one of our RTRL projects where our preservation program was hired to go in and do a survey to find any cultural sites or significant features that were important to the tribe. And they were paid through the RTRL program. This picture on the left and the far right, those individuals are tribal employees through our NRD program, Natural Resource Department program. They were brought in on one of our RTRL projects just to provide some input on some treatments we were looking at doing on an RTRL project. So it allows the tribe to come in and, you know, give comments and help make decisions on work that's going to be done. It also helps create new partnerships, and it strengthens existing ones. Through all of our RTRL projects, we've done a lot of field visits, a lot of meetings, presentations, and through those, you know, we've built relationships with our RTRL partners. Some of them, you know, we've worked with in the past. Some of our partners are new. We've also developed new partnerships, you know, just with these visits and field trips. So it's an opportunity to network and build strong relationships. It creates opportunities for both the cooperators and the tribe, and it provides an additional workforce for the work to get done. The bottom left picture here is an RTRL crew that we've developed that does a lot of work on our RTRL projects. And through the RTRL program, we've been able to fund a 10-person RTRL crew. The right-hand picture is some equipment that's working on an RTRL project. And that equipment is forest development tribal equipment and a tribal operator. So through RTRL, we've been able to increase tribal employment, provide additional work to different tribal departments, and it's getting work done on non-tribal lands for our cooperators. So to sum it up, you know, there's a lot of different things that RTRL can do on cross-boundary work. Anything from funding to providing tribal input, creating new partnerships, creating new employment. So there's a lot of things that RTRL can do. A lot of it is in a project development. You know, what do you want to do? How do you want to get it done? And it's working between the tribes and the cooperators to decide, you know, how that all wants to get done. So I hope this was beneficial for everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Butch Gregg. I'm the acting prescribed fire field specialist for the Fort Apache Agency. I've been with this fire management program for the last 19 years, working in every department from the hotshots, Hellcat engines, and currently in fields management. In addition to this, I had a great opportunity to extend my education by going through the Northern Arizona University 401 Series Fire Ecology and Management Certificate Program, which I'm very fortunate from my agency to pull me through there. But today I'll be covering the Reserve Treaty Rights Land cross-boundary collaboration efforts that happen between the Fort Apache Agency and the Forest Service, and the White Mountain Apache Tribe and the Forest Service. A little short information about the White Mountain Apache tribe of the Fort Apache Indian Reservation. It's located in east central Arizona. Total landmass of 1.6 million acres. A population of over 12,000 tribal enrolled members within the White Mountain Apache tribe. We have a landscape ranging from the high elevation mixed conifer forest in the northeast portion of our reservation down to the southwest, the low elevation of Sonoran Desert. This has been the homelands of the White Mountain Apache tribe ever since the time immemorial. The White Mountain Apache tribe is very fortunate, we're still able to retain these homelands and continue to celebrate our cultural language, songs, and ceremonial dances there. Next, we'll go on to how the program has changed a lot. The RTRL program specifically. The RTRL program began in 2015, originally made for all tribes to request funds to work on lands once occupied by our ancestors, working on trust lands only. Before the RTRL, tribes were only limited to trust lands. After the RTRL program began, it just gave a great opportunity to work on any ancestral lands within the United States. Recently, the BIA Fort Apache agency requested for some funds to work on areas in southern Arizona that had some great ties to our Apaches. Some of the areas that were worked by the BIA Fort Apache's Fuels crew included the Sierra Vista Border 2 project, the Santa Catalina Mountains, and on the Douglas Ranger District. With this new funded BIA Fuels crew, but funded by the RTRL program, really changed the paradigm of this RTRL funding. Not only does this apply to the Apaches, but all tribes within the southwest region of Arizona. Many areas worked by the BIA Fuels crew are very important to many tribes, which could range from sacred sites and using natural resources within these forested areas for anything from medicinal plants, forage, and wildlife. Has areas from Flagstaff through the Mogollon Rim down into New Mexico and Old Mexico was once occupied by Western Apache bands and I'm pretty sure other native tribes also. With this, it's always great to collaborate with the tribe on the priorities, what they feel is best for them that comes out of these projects. Either it be funded through the BIA Fuels crew or to any tribe within the Southwest. Next, we'll talk about the two crews there that are funded for the RTRL. On the upper right is the White Mountain Apache Tribal RTRL crew of 8 personnel, and the bottom right is our BIA Agency Fields crew of 22 GS employees. Next, I'll talk about a little bit of the difference between the crew. One is the staffing level and experience of each program to implement these RTRL projects. Example is the White Mountain Apache Tribal crew, really had to start from the bottom to hire folks, get supplies and vehicles once this RTRL program was approved and to be funded. Currently, the staff only has 8 personnel and with less experience and is only subject to daily work days from the Tribal Forestry Office out to the Apache Sigris National Forest RTRL site that was approved by both entities there. Currently, the crew cannot accommodate overnight to stay closer to the work site since the tribe does not have the capabilities to lodge crew or provide meals and other supplies that may be needed. Excuse me. In addition, the crew is restricted to just 8 personnel on a daily basis to carry out these projects. There's a lot of work for 8 people there. On the other hand, the BIA Fuels crew has the capabilities to lodge in a motel, provide their own meals, and as each employee is a GS employee and carries their own travel card, charge card for these type of purchases. In addition, the Fuels crew can get assistance from other departments within the fire management program when we implement these RTRL projects. And examples are folks from the Hotshot program, Engine Department, Forest Development Crew, and sometimes the Tribal Forestry Fuels program that assist us with these RTRL projects. So there are some advantages for the RTRL projects when it's implemented by the BIA, since it's a group effort, it's more substantial, brings more manpower to implement these projects. So there's a lot of pros and cons with each program there. Next, we'll kind of cover how each RTRL program got started. Each has to go in agreement, has to have an agreement with the Forest Service there. On the White Mountain Apache side, the RTRL program, like I said, it was a tough startup to get going because it's just basically the lack of understanding of the program when it first came out. Once the years moved along, the collaboration between the Apache State Greaves and the White Mountain Apache tribe, they got a better understanding of the program. So with that, when the tribe first approached the Apache State Greaves National Forest about this RTRL program, many meetings came about to specifically pick an area out that had some ties to the Apache people, which was basically the whole Apache State Greaves National Forest, which was all tied to the Apaches there. Some of the issues I believe that came out of this agreement is that just getting the tribe to actually agree on the terms of the master agreement, which was what they had in their place. Since some tribes have the hesitancy to work on Forest Service lands, mainly because the tribe feels like they rather work on treating their own land, their tribal lands, and why work on the Forest Service lands. But once they got a better understanding of this RTRL program, they were all for it, as it included all our ancestral lands, many sacred sites. On the BIA side, the Fort Apache Agency, they had an interagency agreement with the Coronado National Forest in place to implement these RTRL projects. This agreement was put together by the Coronado National Forest line officers, forest supervisors. They did a great job with the assistance of the Coronado National Forest Tribal Relations Specialist, Doreen Gatewood, and our Western Regional Office Field Specialist, Keith Burnett. They had a lot of work put into this amongst those people. In addition, the Coronado National Forest also had a shovel-ready project, a project that was cleared from all the NEPA EA, so that had ties to their ancestral lands, and which was a great start for this program there. It got the ball rolling quicker. In addition to all this in the agreement, it should include how the project will be implemented. Some of the examples within the agreement are which vehicles are going to be used, who's going to lodge them, who's going to pay for the meals, what supplies where the supplies are going to come from. Is it going to be the BIA supplying all their own supplies, such as saws, gas and oil, and vehicles and so forth? So all that has to be within the agreement for both sides to agree on, the Forest Service and the BIA side. So a lot of great collaboration effort between the group there. So in quick summary, there's just two different ways of getting an agreement for the RTRL projects, as stated earlier. One seemed to go a lot smoother than the other, just because the White Mountain Apache tribe, when the RTRL first started, like I said, it was just due to lack of understanding. But the coordination between each of these groups was excellent. It really got everybody involved there, from the tribe down to the BIA, then each of the national forests that we work with. For the the Master Participant Agreement, what was put in place for the White Mountain Apache tribe is a large agreement between the White Mountain Apache tribe and Apache State Greaves National Forest. So a lot of collaboration, like I said, collaboration effort, and an agreement that was put in place. In this, you would see a 292 acre and 3 ranger districts. In the Springville Ranger District was the Greens Peak. The treatment name was Greens Peak. Alpine was the Luna Lake and Hidden Project. Black Mesa was the border project, which was adjacent to the White Mountain Apache tribe for Apache Indian Reservation. Just low acreage, like I said, just due to lack of experience from the crew, as this was the first project, especially on the Apache State Greaves National Forest, which was the Greens Peak. This area had very steep slopes, mixed conifer, high trees per acre, and it was new to this crew for this type of terrain there, which were usually used to anything less than 40% in Ponderosa pine stands. But overall, they got the job done safely and return home every night and gain a lot of experience each and every day. Near future, some of the tribal RTRL personnel will be getting fire training qualifications there. So there's a lot of good teamwork between the Apache St. Greaves National Forest staff and the White Mountain Apache tribe on each of these RTRL projects that I mentioned there. On the BI and Fort Apache side, with the interagency agreement with the Coronado National Forest, a total of 1,889 acres was treated now. A lot of this was a combination of prescribed burning and hand crew thinning. The Santa Catalina Lita project was a fuel break put in place near Summer Haven community. It was a 58-acre project. The Douglas Church was within the Cochise stronghold, completed 45 acres, which was this past winter of 2020 and the beginning of 2021 January. In the Sierra, there's a combination of prescribed burning and hand. So just a little bit about the picture in here. The top right shows Mr. Fleming Tenejeff, our former fuels management crew boss who retired 2 years ago. Mr. Tenejeff had a lot of experience when it came to wildland firefighting. He worked with just about every department within Fort Apache Agency, down to hotshot crew, engine module supervisor, and finished his career in fuels management as a crew boss. So he passed on a lot of knowledge to our younger generation that are upcoming that we recently hired, which shows on the bottom right there, which is Jeremy Harlan, 3rd year in the crew, and the right is Floyd Kinney. Great group of hardworking young people willing to learn and expand their knowledge on a daily basis. And it just all comes back from the senior leadership within the crew. Senior leadership also did assist the Forest Service with decisions on planning how to implement these fields projects, and even during their wildland suppression efforts several times when they were down in Sierra Vista. Next, we'll talk about the tribal concerns on the Apache St. Greaves National Forest, which the White Mountain Apache Tribe RTRL project is within. The White Mountain Apache cultural significant ties to these areas, which are the high points like Greens Peak, Escadilla Mountain, Malt Baldy. The White Mountain Apaches always feel like these high points are sacred sites, which where they go to get medicinal plants. This is where they pray to Yusin. Yusin in Apache is the creator. They felt as when they were in these high points, they felt closer to Yusin. So this is where they felt was very sacred to go pray. Mount Baldy, very sacred mountain to the White Mountain Apache people. It's in the eastern Arizona, like I said. Part of it's on the White Mountain Apache, Fort Apache Indian Reservation, and part of it's on the Apache St. Greaves National Forest. This is a very important mountain to the Apache people. This is where our creation story was created. This mountain also contains the headwaters of the Little Colorado River and Salt River, produces many streams in Arizona, which feeds the cities of Phoenix and the surrounding cities of Phoenix. This mountain provides economic stability for the tribe. There's many man-made lakes. There's recreational camping sites. There's a multi-million-dollar infrastructure to the northwest Sunrise Ski Resort, which really helps the tribe with economic stability. So basically protecting all these high points and the sacred Mount Baldy is very important to the Apache people, which I think the Apache St. Greaves National Forest took it very well. They know the concerns of the Apache people, and they really want to protect this mountain and any surrounding sacred sites. It was threatened in 2011 by the largest fire in Arizona history, the Wallow Fire. Luckily, we had previous treatments on the eastern side of our reservation from logging, thinning, and prescribed burn, which really helped the suppression efforts. Next, to the right, it just shows a picture of Morris Stone of the Great Choctaw Chief Cochise. And like I said in the previous slides, there's some high points in Arizona also too are sacred to many of the native tribes in Arizona. There's 4 sacred mountain ranges, the White Mountains of the eastern Arizona. There's the Mount Graham near the town of Safford in southeast Arizona. The 4 peaks of the Aztec Mountains northwest of Phoenix, and the San Francisco Peaks near Flagstaff. 4 sacred mountains in 4 different directions that were very sacred mounds to the tribes of Arizona. Many of these areas that I mentioned not only hold significant cultural ties to just the Apache people, all the tribes. So some of the first areas that we worked as a BIA Fort Apache Agency Fields crew was the Sierra Vista, which was to protect and retain the Emery Oak stand within this area. Emery Oak is very important to all the tribes in the Southwest. They use it for traditional purpose or traditional foods. And the next is this Catalina Mountains. This mountain holds many cultural significant ties to all the tribes. This mountain holds medicinal plants, sacred sites, abundant wildlife, and waters that come from these mountains are precious to the tribes of the Southwest. The Cochise Stronghold, along with the Chiricahua Mountains, is very important, as this was where the treaty was signed to establish the reservation of Chiricahua Apaches, which was eventually taken back by the federal government, and then became part of the Coronado National Forest. This ancestral land holds many sacred sites and needs protection from natural resources that many tribes use on this landscape, as it may be the lowland desert area or high up in the mountains, as we Native American indigenous people really see the land different than many other non-Native people's perspective. So there's a lot of ties to each of these lands. Next, we'll go into the involvement of the regional BIA field staff and other national force supervisor, first line officers involved. As I mentioned, it was difficult to get a project started in the beginning stages, but having the support from the BIA regional staff and the Forest Service line officers is key. Meetings, agreements will go on for many weeks, months, maybe even years, but having a good project ready that has ties to ancestral tribal lands is a key, and many of the current areas held by the National Forest are all tied to all the tribes of the Southwest. So having the right people to stay consistent and working on these projects, and having the regional staff, to assist and show up even at these project sites is critical. It shows that each entity, that overhead staff, are involved and willing to go see the work that's being done. Some of the challenges is working with one ranger or forest supervisor on these RTRL projects, as a turnover rate for the employees within the Forest Service is constantly changing. You'll be working with one line force supervisor, and a week later that might change as they take new jobs elsewhere. In addition to getting the support from the forest supervisors to get all the clearance in place for an RTRL project, examples are EA, NEPA. Forest Service is much more difficult to get a project approved and started for implementation. And this is where some of the tribe may not understand the Forest Service structure of how each project is being implemented and planned. So if the tribe can work with the BIA regional staff and get to know the person, it's really key to get any project started. Next, we'll cover the pros and cons of each RTRL project with the White Mountain Apache Tribe and the BIA Fort Apache Agency. First of all, I think for both programs, the travel time to work site. Example, White Mountain Apache Tribe is 1.5 to 2 hours to the RTRL site on the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. And the vegetation type, the White Mountain Apache Tribe RTRL, they're more used to working in the flat terrain and the ponderosa pine stand. And then going into the steep slopes, mixed conifer, high elevation thinning projects, it was much different. The BIA side, the fields crew travel time to Sierra Vista was 4.5 to 5 hours, then 1.5 to maybe 1.5 hours to work site the following day. They spend a lot of time away from family, up to 12 days, and return home for 3 days on the weekend, and repeat this cycle for 3 months. For this crew to also work in hardwood like oak, it was more difficult. A lot of wear and tear on the equipment, as to cut them the ponderosa pine stand on a daily basis. This type of wood is not also hard on the equipment, but it was also hard on the folks itself. It took more effort to cut in these woodland oak country. So some of those are the cons, and the pros to these projects were the crews working on lands once occupied by our ancestors, which the crew really like. Just support from other interest groups like It shows here the Homeland Security, Custom and Border Patrol, the Fort Huachuca Sentinel landscape. These two entities really supported the project that was going on in the Sierra Vista Ranger District, the Border 2 project. In addition, the BIA Fuse crew had some folks with great experience when it came to providing input on how each treatment should be implemented. Like I said in the previous slides, the senior leadership that helped the Forest Service staff with some of the treatments that was done and some of the wildland suppression efforts. And just in addition to the older experience, they have a lot of different types of experience on these landscapes. Just where the best place these hazardous fuel reduction treatments. They also assisted Forest Service, like I said, an example is the Catalina project. Forest Service staff put a treatment project in one area with the prescription and with the senior leadership and everybody coming together, and they felt like a different area was the best place to put this treatment, and the Forest Service stuck with that, wrote a new prescription, put a new map down, and that's where the treatment was put. And this past year, it helped with the suppression efforts with the Bighorn fire last year, so which was great, with that buffer there with the fuse treatment. And some of the pros also is just the extra work that the crew gets to have, being employed essentially about year round, and just the support and recognition that comes from the Forest Service staff and the communities they have worked for. Examples of Summer Haven community really loved when the BI Fuse crew up there thinning around their community. Next, we'll go into the common denominators for success. Each RTRL project should have a champion. A champion, by that I mean somebody from the tribal Forest Service side to get these projects going. Someone who's willing to stay consistent, work diligently day after day with the Forest Service staff, the BI regional staff, and the tribe to get a proposal for an RTRL project. From this, success stories could be followed to use internally, externally to show another agency on the RTRL project. Not only should I feel like the overhead staff should document these, but it should lead all the way down to the crew members who've had experience in these areas to show and document these challenges and gain these solutions needed to be successful for each program. With that, tribes should also have their input on interests of these RTRL projects. And another one is just, like I said, I mentioned before, for having a shovel-ready project is key. And if all those project clearances are there and the project's ready to go, you'll get a implementation quicker. One of the key for both of these programs, for the White Mountain Apache Tribe and the BIA Fort Apache Agency, was the overarching shared resource of our cultural resource director and a historian named Ramon Riley. He was a key resource for these projects, knowing the history of all the Western Apache lands. So he was a key resource. Lastly, I'd like to thank the following folks within the Apache Sigurs National Forest: Anthony Madrid, Coronado National Forest, Kerwin Dewberry, our BIA Western Regional Field Specialist, Keith Burnett, also our Branch of Wildland Management Field Director, James Jackson, also known as Mark Jackson, and the White Mountain Apache Tribe themselves, all the dignitaries that supported us, the Chairwoman Gondina Lee Gatewood, Vice Chairman Jerome Casey, and all the other tribal council members. In addition to this, just the family members that support our people that go down to implement these projects. Our families back home are our backbone. They're the ones that keep everything together back home, from taking the kids to school, feeding them, taking them to the hospital, and so forth. So they're key to this project also. And in this picture, you see the Bighorn fire from last year, fire on Frog Mountain, multiple tribal concerns. The mountain's very sacred to all the Southwest tribes. Last, here's my info, Butch Gregg. If you need to get a hold of me, I got my email address, my cell number provided here. I just want to thank you all for your attention there. Thank you.
Hi, this is Scott Hamlet. I'm the fuel specialist here at Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. Today I'm going to be speaking about the RTRL program and cross-boundary collaboration. And I'm just going to get straight into my presentation. All right, here we go. So in 2015, Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma's agriculture and forestry programs began to manage Winding Stair Ranch in Atoka and Pittsburgh counties in Oklahoma. We did this in order to support new and enhance economic and employment opportunities for tribal and community members. So the tribe recognized the necessity to utilize fire and mechanical fuels treatments as a primary tool in supporting these tribal goals. Since that time, many things have changed at the ranch. After organizational realignment, this 44,688 acre ranch is now managed for cattle grazing and wildlife by the Agriculture Department in the Commerce Division of Choctaw Nation, with the Natural Resources Department being in the Government Division. This presents many opportunities for partnership. And as always, challenges have arisen as well. So the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma is located in the southeast corner of Oklahoma. You can see it here outlined in black, and the ranches are highlighted here in purple. So when that organizational realignment happened, Winding Stair Ranch became split by Indian Nation Turnpike, right down the middle. So to the west, we have what is called Daisy Ranch. And to the east, we have what is called Ty Valley Ranch. The fuel treatments that we have done so far have been a combination of mechanical and prescribed burning. And the ranches have assisted quite a bit in the mechanical, and also they've done quite a bit of spraying as well. And these work in tandem with our forestry treatments. So here is an example of a treatment that we've done. These cedars here in the background and here in the foreground, these are clipped. The ones in the back were eventually all clipped. And that was done by the ranches. And now we have the after photograph. We've burned this multiple times, none of which have actually been funded by RTRL. They've been funded by tribal funding. I'll get more to that later. So all of the fuels treatments that have happened have been on what we call the Daisy side of the ranch. The first project that we did was a mechanical fuel treatment. And you can see it here highlighted in yellow along the western boundary of Daisy Ranch. This is via fuel break. It's a 9-mile long fuel break that's 105 feet wide. Here's a picture of it during construction. You can see the removed timber is still hanging around. Again, piles. And more piles. So here's what it looks like today. These piles still remain here. This mechanical treatment is due for maintenance. Another reason for these fuel treatments, besides being a fuel break, is also in case of a wildfire, it gives us access to an area that normally would have very little access. And you can see here that the ranch people themselves have come in and fenced this and is still used for access, not only for ranch opportunities or ranch activities, but also for hunting. The ranch actually uses a lot of leasing. They hunt leasing tracts out, which is another challenge that we have to deal with due to having to coordinate those seasons, you know, the deer seasons and the spring turkey season with our treatments. So we moved on here to the clay pond pasture. This was a prescribed burn. Here's the dozer line pre-burn. And here is that same dozer line post-burn. This spring, we burned the shell pit pasture. And here's an after picture. So with this treatment, we partnered with the Eastern Oklahoma Region's BIA crews, who actually assisted during the burn. And the ranch actually came in and did a lot of these piles and some of the lines when they installed the fencing. So here we have what we call the Ertman bottoms. This has been burned multiple times. Again, only once with RTRL funding and twice without, twice with tribal funds. So this pasture right here is what we call the pump house pasture. We did a mechanical treatment on this. We did a lot of lopping and piling. All those piles are gone now. We burn those piles again with tribal funding, not RTRL. So that all leads to this map right here. And this is what I wanted to illustrate. This map shows the relationship between treatments completed under RTRL and treatments completed with tribal funds. All of the treatments done with tribal funds were submitted for historic resources and NEPA clearance, but due to time constraints with the ranch, they were completed without federal funds. This works out to be about 20% of all acres treated. And all of these treatments pictured here are treatments that have potential for future RTRL treatments. In fact, these yellow are planned for 2022. You can see here we've burned around 7,500 acres in total over the past 5 years. So as well as all the fuels treatments we've done, we've actually contracted out archaeological surveys with the RTRL funding, with the partnership of our Historic Preservation Department. And to date, we've completed 62% of the acres of the combined Daisy and Tie Valley ranches. You can see that highlighted in red here. Those are the areas that have yet to be surveyed, and those are planned for the future as well. So some things to consider for the future. The McGirt ruling by the Supreme Court and the subsequent Sizemore ruling here in Oklahoma have determined that the Choctaw Nation is still a reservation. How that works into how RTRL works, I'm not sure, but I'm curious. Some of the other challenges we have is that the process for getting clearance to spend federal funding for RTRL treatments adds another layer of archaeological clearance, where it has to go through 2 Oklahoma state agencies for clearance as well. That puts an additional time span on it. And a lot of times the ranch requests us to burn something and we don't get the clearance in time. We end up burning it with program funding. So some partnerships we can look forward to in the future. The tribe has a drone integration program now. They've actually approached us about using their drones, assisting in fuels treatments, using aerial ignition, and also infrared detection. We have a land and title department that is actually working with GIS that we could bring into our fold because we are actually under the same umbrella organizationally. And then land management is also under that same organizational umbrella, and they work a lot with individual restricted land, and they partner with the NRCS a lot. So working with land management and working with the NRCS is something we can build on. Another potential partner is the Oklahoma State of Wildlife. They have a wildlife management area that is actually adjacent to Daisy Ranch. They do a lot of fuels treatments themselves. There could be some coordination there. Have that fuel break right in the middle of them. And then, of course, that leads us to private landowners. That is always going to be an opportunity. And there you go. Thank you for inviting me to speak here at the symposium, and I look forward to any questions that anyone has. All right, thanks.
Thank you to all of our presenters. That was a great collection of information. And it looks like we already have some questions coming into our chat box. And this one is for Mr. Clairmont. What was your justification for road decommissioning and fencing to get funding? So Darrell, if you want to open up, unmute your line. Have any thoughts on that question?
As far as justification, so it was the area that the work was done. It was a priority to the tribe to try and restrict some of the access, and the access that was going on was a lot of off-road type private use. It was also a priority to our cooperator TNC to try and get some of that that off-road use restricted. So both the tribe and the cooperator, that was a priority for both of them, and that's how we got it done. So the TNC land too, it's considered private, and they did the NEPA portion through their protocols to get that cleared. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Darrell. And Doreen, please feel free to either raise your hand and open up if you had some follow-up questions, or type those into the question and answer. We have another question from Vernon Stearns. All fantastic and inspiring work. Has anyone ever received commitment from their partners, collaborators to invest in the longer term maintenance of these RTL projects? Or has the partner collaborator reached out back to the tribe agency with additional shovel-ready, mutually beneficial projects that need funding? And I'll just check. Darrell, you took the last question. Mark, Brad, or Butch, did you want to take that?
This is Brad. You got me?
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
So for us with the Mount Hood National Forest, they have talked to us about expanding on to what we've done up there with the RTRL project and them. But it's not shovel ready yet. So a lot of loopholes to jump through, mostly with what they have to go through on the Forest Service side. And so we're still in talks with that. And that's the only one that we've got feedback from so far is the Mount Hood National Forest on our side.
Hey, Stephanie, this is Butch. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Butch.
Yeah, on our side, I know with the Sierra Vista, the Coronado National Forest, we do have a lot of projects lined up. As long as we keep getting funded, we'll always be there for the next several years there.
Mark or Darrell, anything to add?
Yeah, this is Darrell. So we've had a couple projects with the same partners. So with Fish Wildlife Service on the National Bison Range, we've done 2 RTRL projects. Plains District Forest Service, we've done 2 separate projects. So we've done multiple projects with same collaborators. And currently right now the TNC project and the BLM are both looking at future projects. We're actually in the process of trying to put something together right now with both those cooperators.
Thank you, Darrell. Any other thoughts or comments from our panelists on Vernon's question? All right. And just another reminder to our participants that you can raise your hand. We can open up your line. And for, I know some of our panelists, you are just on texting, so please feel free to share any answers in the chat box. We've already got another question coming in from Ray Moody. What is the funding level for these projects? How much money is available, and do the projects compete for funding?
Well, I'll take that, Stephanie. And hello, Ray. That's a good question to ask and to get out to folks. So the original amount allocated to the Bureau was $10 million. And that started in 2015, and we've had $20 million or $10 million allocated to us annually. And it is a competitive process, and so we've set some guidelines for the funds. Originally, we had the guidelines that had the projects going out 5 years, but with feedback from the regions, most people wanted the timing to be cut back to projects limited to 4 years. And so we've limited projects to a time frame of 4 years and then $1 million each. And for the most part, we've been able to fund most of the projects that have come in. Some don't quite meet the criteria, and we've had to return those to the regions to ask them to reconsider. In particular, facilities funds, we can't use RTRL for that. And so those are the general guidelines. We have $10 million a year, and the project's maximum can be $1 million spread out over 4 years. So along with that, and to kind of tag on to Ray's question, I noticed in the chat room that there was a journal article that was identified for, I believe this was out of the Southwest region. Tribe of Pueblo had started an RTRL project, and then they wanted to be able to use or to do fuels projects on their own lands. And so the blend there is to the RTRL project funding got them working on their highly prized ancestral grounds. And then they wanted to be able to work on their trust lands. And so I interacted with the regional fuel specialist and said, well, I know there's some project money. Why don't you interact with the local tribe or pueblo to determine whether or not they can bring on more people and do work locally on trust lands. And so that is in process. So we are trying to recognize areas that we can improve and expand RTRL within the guidelines that we've been provided by the Office of Wildland Fire.
Great, thanks, Mark. Just checking in if any of our other panelists had some thoughts regarding the funding level for these projects and availability for competing in response to Ray's question. All right. And Mark, it looks like you have, oh, go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was just looking at Vern's question, and again, another interesting one for post-recovery fire efforts, and that's pretty broad, in particular on non-trust lands. So it would really need to meet the guidelines of dealing with fire hazard that's in high and very high, and then what types of tribal traditional ancestral footprint items do we want to be able to do. So we could certainly take a look at those, but generally speaking, Vern, the post-fire recovery funds that the Forest Service and the DOI has, and often states may have those, should be addressing the major portions of post-fire recovery efforts.
Great. And I'm just gonna check in with Butch, Brad, Scott, and Darrell. Any other thoughts in response to either Vernon or some of the other questions we received from Ray and others? We have some nice dialogue happening in the chat directly as well on specific projects. I'll just check in then with each of our panelists. Was there anything you wanted to add to the presentations that were recorded or based on the discussion generally to our attendees and other participants?
Well, Stephanie, let me start out with this. Is when we initiated the RTRL program in 2015, it was new to everyone. And so I want to point out these folks on the panel and others that have worked with us to develop the program and bring it to where it is today. It's been recognized as being very successful, provides the tribes opportunities that we just didn't have before to be able to work on non-trust lands. And I think that Butch Gregg pointed out some key items when we are working with collaborators, and Darrell touched on those also, is that we need to have champions. We need to have champions within the Forest Service that understand how the Forest Service work. We need to have champions within the state or the NGOs, as Darrell worked with plenty of them and began to understand how they function. But we also have to have RTRL champions within the tribes, so we understand how the program works and that we define what our own heritage and traditions and cultures are, not allowing the other landowners to do that for us. So, so anyway, I'm going to give all these folks that are on the panel and all of the folks that are currently engaged in RTRL programs and projects, we owe them a debt of gratitude. And because they've taken on a lot and they've done a great job at it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I'll just check in with the other panelists if you had any additional thoughts. We did get another question, but wanted to check in.
So
the other, go ahead.
Don in Northern California, I don't know if the group would be considered in Northern California enough for you, but there's certainly one there. They've been one of our initial programs, and we've funded them through at least 2 RTRL cycles.
Great, thank you. And it looks like Vita shared some additional links. Great recognition at ITC for an RTRL champion. And then it looks like Jim wanted to speak, so I'm gonna open up your phone line, Jim. Go ahead.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thanks everybody on the panel for contributing to this this presentation. I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity, 7 years in or 6 years into RTRL to reflect and do somewhat of an after action, to really see if it's meeting the intent of tribal restoration of ancestral use areas, see if there's things within the program that can be improved or tweaked to allow for greater efficiencies, whether or not to assess the need for additional funding or a reduction in funding for RTRL. So, just if there was an opportunity at all to just reflect and, do somewhat of an after action to see how we can improve the program. Thank you.
Hey, Stephanie, this is Butch.
Go ahead, Butch.
I just have one last thing, just for the Fort Apache side now. All the areas they've worked, it really showed some great interest, not just from our tribes only, the Waimana Apache tribe, but other tribes. We got the Pimas, we got the Yavapai Apaches, all these tribes with the Southwest are showing great interest in some of the stuff we have done. So we had several visitors come by from other tribes, talk to us about these areas. So I'm really glad that they're taking interest in that and just really telling the story of the past and how they've gathered different things on these areas. So I just want to pass that on and just want to say thank you to everybody. Everybody did a good job. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Butch. Any other thoughts, either generally or in response to Jim's thought of an after action from our other panelists?
Yeah, kind of on Jim's topic. Here on our tribe, we started our first project in 2015, and we've done 4 since that. So it seems like in every single project, we've learned something new. So I think it would be good if we could get the tribes that have done RTRL projects some kind of meeting or something like that to where we can share pitfalls, positive outcomes, just how to get through planning, proposals, stuff like that. It would be good to try and share that information, as well as tribes that are looking to start RTRL projects, because it's a lot of work, especially if you have a fuels program at home, to try and do that program and work off reservation, it's a lot of work. So I think Jim's right. It would be good to come together and talk about the successes and maybe some failures that we've had.
This is Brad from Warm Springs. From what Darrell had to say, I'm in total agreement with that. Also, for any of the new tribes that are trying to start RTRL projects, try to get with somebody who's already got one through. Don't reinvent the wheel. It made it a lot easier for us when we were able to get a plan that was approved and work off that plan. So if you connect with somebody who's been successful with that, it should help out in the long run for you guys going through kind of what we had to go through.
Great. It sounds like a lot of folks responded to what you were sharing, Darrell. We did get another question, actually a comment in our question and answer tab about a good suggestion. Darren Williams mentioned that he will put this in the AAR type question in front of the Northwest Region Fuel Specialist eyes. Just wanted to draw folks' attention to that. We are almost at the end of this panel, so I just want to check in one last time if any last comments or requests. And Nathan was sharing that Choctaw has done an RTRL and would love to participate in any RTRL review. The land status is different up there than the lower 48, and RTRL has been critical to their program. So just sharing that in the chat, bringing it to folks' attention. So thank you, Nathan, for plopping that into our chat box. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of our presenters for developing your presentations and getting those into Intertribal Timbering Council and sharing them with us today and being on the phone to answer questions and share your thoughts with all of our attendees. So thank you so much for all of that information and support.